Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And this is our Nagoya 2024 review. Our Nagoya 2024 Banzuke review. The Banzuke.
We have not traveled in time.
No, we are not reporting news of Ono Sato's second consecutive U show just yet. That'll wait about another month.
Whoops, we dialed in our flux capacitor to 4 weeks early.
Yeah. Like I said, about a month.
Yeah.
No, we're going to be talking about the Banzuke that just dropped yesterday. We're recording this the day after it dropped. I had a chance to go through the Banzuke, have an idea of what makes sense to me, what I got right, what I got wrong, and things that I got wrong that just don't make sense at all. So, as always, we'll start at the top of the Banzuke with our Yokozuna, which obviously still Terunofuji on the east side of the Yokozuna rank, and no Yokozuna on the west side, as no Ozeki has been promoted. So we move down to Ozeki. On the east side, we will have Kotozakura, and then on the west side, we will have Hoshoryu. And at Ozeki 2, not going to have Kirishima there anymore, unfortunately. On the east side, it will be blank to balance out Terunofuji being alone on the east side. And on the west side, we will have Taka Keisho, who will be Kadoban for the 9th time in his career. He will need to get a winning record, or he will drop from the Ozeki rank, just like we saw with Kirishima this past Basho.
So real quick note on our if you're watching on YouTube and you're following along on the visuals, Ryan's prediction there on the right, remind us again what the green and the red colors mean for those.
So the green and the red colors on my prediction on the right are just if somebody's going to be moving up the Banzuke, they had a winning record, and the red means they're moving down the Banzuke, they had a losing record. So that's all those colors mean. And then like a lighter green shade towards the bottom, that's somebody that's promoted up to Juryo. Darker green shade towards the top, that means they are in the Sanyaku ranks. On the left-hand side, we're going to be revealing the actual Banzuke as we go through this. Anybody that has a clear white background, that means I got them predicted perfectly in my guess. If they have a green background, it means they're slightly higher than I predicted. If they have a red background, it's slightly lower than I predicted. The darker the shade of green or red is the more severe of a miss from my prediction.
So we're not going to see any green or red for a while, correct? Certainly not our very next ones.
Certainly not at Sekiwake. Who could mess up that? Obviously, Abi would be Sekiwake East and Onosato would be Sekiwake West. No, I messed that up. That's me. I'm the guy who did that. And basically, it comes down to I was dumb. I did not spend enough time on that rank. I did some half-assed research into it before we did the Banzuke preview, before I submitted it. And I should have just dug into it a little deeper, had more critical eye on it, because when I did more research after I submitted it, I'm like, oh, no, there's no way Onosato's going ahead of Abi. Like all the recent precedent for like a Komosubi with like a Yusho or Jun Yusho, they're not jumping ahead of Sekiwake that were already at that rank and had a winning record. So
if I remember right, there weren't a ton of data points, but like you seemed somewhat confident on the preview.
I had said it was like mixed results on the preview, and as to false confidence, obviously. But yeah, no, that's one of my worst takes in the Sanyaku ranks for a while. So
the Sanyaku, yeah, it's pretty rare for you to have any misses at all up there, but this was a weird case for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it cost me a couple points on Guess the Banzuke, a couple spots in the standing, so that hurts. But we'll get to the Guess the Banzuke results at the end. At Komosubi, we've got Daisho at Komosubi East.
Not yet. We got one more.
Oh my gosh, you're right. This is what happens when I don't do a full and complete outline. We completely forget at Sekiwake 2.
You
East.
Forgot. I remembered.
This is a team effort, Jake. You're right. Okay, I've said that from the beginning.
Grand Sumo Breakdown as a unit failed on Sekiwake 2. You're right.
That's right. Kirishima is there as he is dropping from the Ozeki rank, and Ozeki that drop down to Sekiwake are always the lowest ranked Sekiwake on the next Basho. But hopefully, if Kirishima gets 10 wins, he can rejoin the Ozeki ranks. Looking at kind of the Ozeki rank real quick for next Basho, feasibly we could have anywhere from 2 Ozeki to, if you want to get absolutely nuts, you could say 6 Ozeki. if like Abi goes 15-0, Onosato goes 14-1, or flip those, they both get promoted. Kirishima doesn't get 10, Takakeisho drops, or Kirishima gets his 10, Takakeisho gets 8. Theoretically, you might end up with 6. But
minimum
realistically,
2, right?
Yeah, minimum 2, upper limit 6, realistically upper limit 4, where Takakeisho gets his 8, Kirishima gets his 10, back up to Ozeki, and just kind of restores that group of 4. Abi, Onosato both more than likely need 2 more good Bashos to be promoted.
Yeah. If I remember right, they're both like clearly on an Ozeki run, but like they're both.
Onosato is. Abi with 10 wins isn't really gonna. The JSA is not going to get too excited for a Sekiwake with 10 wins coming off of one with 9 wins. So, no, I don't think we're too excited about Abi yet, but it could be the first.
I think it's one where, like, we very easily, in hindsight, could see his 10 wins as step number 1. Like, if he gets 12 and then 13 or something like that, whatever.
No shot.
You don't think so?
Calling that now. No shot Abi makes Ozeki. No.
Well, no, I mean, I don't mean like this very next one. I'm just saying that
I even mean in 2 Bashos. I just don't see it happening.
You're not talking math anymore. You're talking Abi.
Like I'm talking Abi.
Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, got it. Math-wise, I feel like a 10 wins from Sekiwake is absolutely a feasible step 1 for an Ozeki run. But yeah, okay. And now we're on the same page.
Yeah. Following up with 9 the previous Basho, he'd be sitting at 19. So to get there, he would need 14 minimum to get to the 33.
Right. I agree that I don't think it's happening, but I just want to make it clear. Onosato and Abi are definitely in the mix of their Ozeki run, could have already started potentially.
Yeah. And Kirishima's on the last leg of his Ozeki run as well. Just needs 10 here to get get back up there.
A shorthand Ozeki run, yeah.
Yep. All right, Jake, do I now have your permission to move down to the Komusubi rank?
Oh, I was waiting on you. I thought we were vamping until you got your stuff together and finished your outline or something.
No, all my stuff's together. I'm good.
Your poop is in a group.
We'll find out as we go. So Daisho back in the Sanyaku ranks at Komusubi East, following his Junyu show from Maegashira 1 last Basho. As expected, his 11-win performance for Maegashira 1 not quite enough to force open a new Sekiwake rank, which nobody really expected. And then at Komusubi West, we're going to have Hiradoumi there, rising up 2 ranks from Maegashira 2 following his 9-6 record. This is going to be his Sanyaku debut. And I think he's sneakily one of the younger guys in the top division. Like, I don't really think of him as a younger guy. He's just 2 months older than Onosato. I think he's like 4 months or like 2 months younger than Oho, probably about a year or so younger than Hoshoryu. So he's right in that range, and here he is at Komusubi. So we'll see what damage he can do at the Komusubi rank this Basho. He is at the Komusubi West rank, so we expect him to have a day 1 matchup against Teruno Fuji. If Teruno Fuji were to compete. I think that's a big if.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll have another week's worth of news under our belt by the time we do our preview. So hopefully we'll have some updates for you then. But yeah, as of now, no reason to think he will or won't be in the Basho.
Yeah. At Maegashira 1, taking the top Maegashira 1 East rank, we have Meisei, who is rising up 4 ranks after a 10-5 record from Maegashira 5. If you remember back to the preview, Jake, this is kind of the area where is not really a whole lot of options here. So yeah, Meisei easily fit in here at Maegashira 1, no controversy. Same with Atami Fuji at Maegashira 1 East or West, just sliding down a half rank after his 7-8 record for Maegashira 1 East. So both of these guys are very much a winning record away from joining the Sanyaku ranks. Then we get down to Maegashira 2, and this was the big crux of this Banzuke, where there's just nobody that deserves to be Maegashira 2, and we had to mine to the depths of Rikshi that deserved to be Maegashira 6 in order to fill this spot. And in order to do that, they called on Wakamoto Haru to take the Maegashira 2 East rank, dropping down only 3 ranks after a 4-11 record from Sekiwake. I know there were some people predicting out there, it's just like, that's just too soft of a drop for Wakamoto Haru. They flipped him over to Maegashira 2 West just to give him a little bit more of a drop, because it's been a while since we've seen a Sekiwake with 4 wins land at Maegashira 2 East. In fact, it's been since 1986 that a Sekiwake got this soft of a drop after a 4-11 record from Sekiwake. But there are instances of a Sekiwake with 4 wins only dropping down to Maegashira 1 in the modern era, but that hasn't happened since 1971. They've figured it out, so they don't have to drop
Yes.
anybody that low.
The modern era of only 53 years ago.
Hey, in sumo, that's a relatively short time.
That's yesterday. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then joining Wakamoto Haru at Maegashira 2 is Mitake Yumi, rising up 5 ranks after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 7. Once again, it's a shocking drop for Wakamoto Haru to only drop down 3 ranks, and a shocking rise for Mitake Yumi to rise up 5 ranks after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 7. But when you went through the prediction, these were the next 2 guys that deserve to be ranked, and they went in order of what the numbers said. So follow the math. It usually gets you the correct answer. As distasteful as it was.
Both of these guys, though, are definitely grateful for such a weird Banzuke, because that is insanely lucky.
Absolutely. Another Rikshi. I mean, we're going to keep going with Rikshi that are grateful for soft drops here for a little bit.
Remembering from our preview, there's a big old chunk here. I think the next 2 or 3 ranks are all like way luckier than they deserve to be for their records.
Yeah, and you can look at my prediction. Like, the next 6 guys that I have landing are all guys dropping and like having soft drops here.
Yeah,
and that starts with Takayasu at Maegashira 3 East. Just he had a 7-8 record. Just gonna leave him there. There's nobody who deserves to go ahead of him that should push him down. So we're fine keeping him in the same spot. And then at Maegashira 3 West, we have Gonoyama dropping down only 1 rank after a 6-9 record from Maegashira 2. We'll keep the train rolling down to Maegashira 4 East, where we have Tobizaru also dropping down only 1 rank after a 6-9 record from Maegashira 3. Even smaller of a drop for Tobizaru as Gonoyama went from Maegashira 2 West to Maegashira 3 West. Tobizaru is only going from Maegashira 3 West to Maegashira 4 East. So
only half a rank. Yeah.
It's 1 numerical rank difference, but realistically, he's only dropping 1 spot down the Banzuke in the overall order of things.
Right.
And then we just have Ura, who is staying put at Maegashira 4 West after a 7-8 record. So a lot of guys getting lucky in this range of things. And that continues on to Maegashira 5, where we have Onosho, who also had a 7-8 record, and he will be staying put at Maegashira 5 East. Nobody is forcing him down the Banzuke. He deserved to be ahead of everybody else on the Banzuke. So this is our 3rd 7-8 Rikshi that we are keeping in the same spot so far on this Banzuke.
And there's 12 in a row. I hope that streak doesn't end.
Not quite 12 in a row, but it almost feels like it on this Banzuke.
No, isn't that Kirishima down? Whatever. You have 12 guys in a row that you have nailed it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about 12 guys in a row with 7-8 records.
Oh, no, not quite that. You're right.
Yeah. But yes, you are correct. That is 12 correct predictions in a row, but the correct prediction streak ends at Maegashira 5 West, where Shonan Umi getting a lucky jump of 5 ranks after a 9-6 record from Maegashira 10. Not quite up to his highest rank ever, but pretty close to Shonan Umi's peak rank here. And then at Maegashira 6 East, another Rikishi that I was off by just a little bit, Takanosho, up 2 ranks after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 8. And then we get to Maegashira 6 West. And the reason I got the first two wrong is Oho dropping down 2 ranks after a 6-9 record from Maegashira 4. So in my prediction, you can see I had Oho up at Maegashira 5, Shonan Umi at Maegashira 6 East, and Takanosho at Maegashira 6 West. Basically, I thought Oho would get some joy bias here, and he got none at all. So Oho was ranked Maegashira 4 West. That made him 16 out of 16 Rikishi in the Joy. Joy, we're typically thinking are the top 16 Rikishi. The Rikishi we expect the Yokozuna to face in like a typical Yusho race where Yokozuna's winning everything, and so he's just going to face the top 16 guys on the Banzuke. There's no Maegashira 12 that's suddenly winning after day 11 that needs to go up and face the Yokozuna to make sure that that's not going to happen. But so Oho was at the bottom of that list, and I thought, hey, the bottom of the list still counts. He should still get some sort of joy bias to go ahead of these Rikishi that were on the. They deserve the same rank as Oho, but they were on the east side. He was also on the east side previously, but he had a worse record than them. I assumed joy bias would take care of that. It did not. I'm wondering. This is kind of making me wonder, does joy bias not really extend down to Maegashira 4? I think traditional thinking is joy is more Maegashira 1 through 3. So maybe Oho being at Maegashira 4 West, they're like, it's too far down. We're not going to give him joy bias. Or it's just the continuing dimming of joy bias and just the continuation of it meaning less and less as we go on each basho.
Yeah, it's something that we've noted. How long's it been since they got the new committee in there, or like the new head of the
start
committee?
of 23.
Yeah,
start of 2023.
So roughly a year and a half's worth where we've kind of been reevaluating the rules that had been established before that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know joy bias is one that has kind of come and gone a little bit and has been an issue, but yeah, it does seem like it's on a trajectory towards not really being a thing at all.
Yeah. And like I said, this is kind of an edge case with Oho at the bottom. I'd be curious to see if the same thing would have happened if it was Maegashira 1, Maegashira 2. But what ended up happening is they just followed the math. Shonan Umi was on the east side. He had the most wins of the group that all deserved the same rank. So he went, and then the person with the next wins was Takanosho. Then he went. The next wins on the east side was Oho. And then there was a fourth Rikishi that deserved to be the same rank as these guys, and that is Koto Shoho at Maegashira 7, who is rising up 1 rank to Maegashira 7 East after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 8. He was on the west side, and so the east-west tiebreaker, Koto Shoho was last of those 4. So that grouping that I missed, if I had just followed the math, I would have gotten them all correctly.
Gotcha.
Then at Maegashira 7 West, we have Sadana Umi rising up 3 ranks after a 9-6 record from Maegashira 10. So you can see there, Sadana Umi rising up 3 ranks after a 9-6 record. That's what we're expecting. The Banzuke is kind of caught up to itself, and it's sort of healing itself. We're at a group of Rikishi that are kind of at their expected promotions or demotions in this range. There'll be a couple more over demotions, under demotion, over promotions, under demotions in the next couple of ranks, but the Banzuke is getting to that point where it's healing itself.
Yeah, we're not reaching as far to get somebody that deserves to be that rank.
Right. Then we get to Maegashira 8. On the east side, we're going to have Ryuden, who is rising up 6 ranks after a 10-5 record from Maegashira 14. And this is the spot where the best predictions perfect streak stopped. Like, I know there were a couple of people who had absolutely perfect predictions all the way up to Maegashira 8 East. And then this is where it stopped, because this is one of 2 head-scratching decisions from the Banzuke committee right here, as At Maegashira 8 West, they have Keen Bozan going there, going up 2 ranks after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 10. And I'll talk about Keen Bozan in a moment after we reveal Maegashira 9 East is Oshoma. He's going to be at his career high ranking, rising up 5 ranks after a 10-5 record from Maegashira 14. So the crux of it is not sure why Keen Bozan went ahead of Oshoma here. Both of these guys deserve to be the same rank, and both of them were on the west side of the Banzuke. So it's a virtual tie scenario, and that's where we always go with who had the most wins. And so in that case, the person with the most wins was Oshoma, not Keen Bozan. So why did Keen Bozan go ahead of Oshoma here? Like, we just saw the group of Shona Naomi, Takanosho, Oho, Koto Shoho. They went based on who had the most wins when we had a group of 3 people tied for deserving the same rank. Why didn't that happen with Keen Bozan and Oshoma here? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, unfortunately. I can't come up with any real reasoning for this that doesn't contradict something else that happened on this Banzuke.
Right.
Because my first thought was like, well, Keen Bozan was ranked Maegashira 10, Oshoma was Maegashira 14. That's like a 4 rank gap between them. Maybe they wanted to do give the benefit of the doubt to Keen Bozan that he had like a tougher schedule with that 4 rank gap, and so they gave him the benefit of the doubt there. But then I remembered, well, Oshoma fought a couple of Sanyaku matches this Basho because he was in the Yusho lead after day 12. Keen Bozan didn't fight anybody in the Sanyaku. And also, Oho was previously ranked Maegashira 4. Shona Naomi was previously ranked Maegashira 10, I believe. That was a 6 rank gap, and Shona Naomi went ahead of Oho there in that virtual tie. So this is just one that seems like they just did it randomly, which we know all Banzukes are random, but we try to find these tiebreaker rules. And they typically follow that, but this is just a random one that defies all logic.
Yeah, there's always the one that's just like slight inconsistency. Like you said, they if there's 2 things that they can't decide between, just pick that guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas all of us who are trying to analyze it like it's a computer game, like that's infuriating.
Well, the thing is most of the time you can analyze it like it's a computer game, like,
but not exactly always.
Yeah, because most other times on this Banzuke, you can follow whoever has the most wins is going to win the tie. On most other Banzukes, 80 to 90% of the time, that's the rule. The rule that is followed. Why is there that 10 to 20% that doesn't follow it? It almost feels like it's a conscious decision on their part to go against it, because there's no other reason that you'd follow something almost so consistently to just randomly break out of it for no discernible reason.
If it was something, exactly.
If it was truly random, it would be 50-50. And by this point, I would have caught on to that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like every time they finish it and they're like, okay, we followed the rules exactly. Now switch those 2 guys.
Yeah, pretty much.
Got to keep everybody on their toes.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, does make Gessa Banzuke more exciting because, like we've said many times, if it was just simple math and equations, everybody would have the right answer every time. There wouldn't be a game around it.
Yep, there you go.
Doesn't make it incredibly frustrating when they go against it, though. All right, at Maegashira 9 West, we are going to have Tamawashi landing here, sliding over from the Maegashira 9 East side after he had a 7-8 record. So just a 1/2 rank demotion for Tamawashi here. And this is going to cause a few issues for me going down the way, because this is where I had Asanoyama landing in my prediction. The former Komosubi that went 0-15. I had a bit of a softer landing for him than the Banzuke committee did. So him not being here causes a bit of an avalanche of small misses due to everybody being a 1/2 rank higher than I thought they would be until we get to where Asanoyama was ranked.
Do you should I skip ahead and show where he landed just to like illustrate how far off, or should we just get there naturally?
We'll just get there.
Okay, fair enough.
So at Maegashira 10.
Oh yeah, but remember, 9 West is where we expected him.
9 West. I mean, they could see that on my prediction on the right hand side if you're watching on YouTube. So yeah,
Oh,
Maegashira
I'm
9
not
West.
watching, so I didn't notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Maegashira 10 East, we have Shodai, who is falling down one rank after a 7-8 record from Maegashira 9. And on Maegashira 10 West, we have Midori Fuji dropping down 4 ranks after a 5-10 record from Maegashira 6. And at Maegashira 11 East, we have Ichi Yamamoto up 1 rank after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 12. So I know I said I was going to have everybody off by just about 1 rank in this range. Well, Midori Fuji and Ichi Yamamoto is an exception. And that's because the Banzuke committee did it again.
They pulled
They
another one.
they were done sticking by the standard rules and conventions that have guided the creation of Banzukes for centuries. And that rule is that the east side gets precedence over the west side. I get that we might make exceptions when it comes to Rikshi dropping down from the Sanyaku or the Joy, or maybe exceptions are made when we're dealing with Juryo trash trying to come up and interfere with our Maegashira dealings. But Midori Fuji wasn't falling from the Sanyaku or the Joy. He was Maegashira 6. Ichi Yamamoto wasn't rising from Juryo. He was Maegashira 12. So why on God's good green earth, when both of these Rikshi deserved the same rank, and one was on the east side and the other was on the west side, would we put the west side Rikshi, Midori Fuji, ahead of the east side Rikshi, Ichi Yamamoto? It's even worse than the Keen Bozan and Oshoma situation, because that's one where it's like, okay, we get past the clear east-west tiebreaker in the Keen Bozan and Oshoma one. So we're down to like tiebreaker number 3 in that case. Mm-hmm. And then this one, it's the east. That's like the east-west tiebreaker. East people go before the west people. That's just how it works. And here they're like, nah, Midori Fuji. He goes ahead because reasons.
Yeah.
I'm mad. That one makes me mad.
I like how it resulted in you getting a guy right that you otherwise wouldn't have, and you're still furious about it.
It did help my guess the Banzuke score, because it did artificially push down Ichi Yamamoto a little bit further than he should have, which put him right where I predicted him to be.
Right.
But still, it's dumb. It was so dumb. It makes no sense at all. There's like, it's so weird to, like I said, like with Joy bias, Sanyaku bias, I could see them do it east-west. It's like, this is like the range of the Banzuke where they follow the rules the most. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Maegashira 8 through like 13, 14 before we get to the Juryo guys. This is just like where it's so easy if people are tied. This is just like east-west and then most number of wins. And then this time they just completely did away with that in this case. I'm so mad at this.
This is so us though, because you're like, the thing that you're most upset about right now is a guy that you got right at Maegashira 11. It's like the most infuriating part of this entire frustrating Banzuke.
I got it right for the wrong reasons, which doesn't really feel like I got it right.
Oh, classic Banzuke episode there for sure.
But luckily for me, nobody else would have gotten that right. Same with like the Keen Bozan ahead of Oshoma. Like the vast majority of people would have flipped those two just like I had.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right, and then we're going to continue the small miss avalanche with the missing spot for Asanoyama, with Nishikigi landing at Maegashira 11 West. He is down 4 ranks after a 5-10 record from Maegashira 7. So at Maegashira 12 East, this is where we finally do get Asanoyama. You can see that's a deep dark red there.
That's a lot of red. That's very red.
I missed him by 3 numerical ranks. That's a pretty significant miss on my part, but luckily for Guess the Banzuke, miss of 3 numerical ranks, it maths the same as a miss of 1 numerical rank. They're both worth 0, so it doesn't really affect that too much.
Let me just make sure that this is easier to read. We're going to switch it to white text.
There you go. That works.
Just to illustrate how red that is.
Yeah. So man. Asanoyama slides down 12 ranks after an 0-15 record from Komosubi. So he ends up 3 numerical ranks lower than I thought he would end up. And this placement in particular is just like kind of perplexing because it's just like, why here? Because we could have pushed him down to Maegashira 12 West, and then that would allow Chura no Umi to get a half rank over promotion, just like the other Rikshi have been getting a half rank higher than they deserved. And then what's the huge difference between Nishikigi and Chura no Umi? Both of them deserve to be the same rank. So what's the difference between them that made Nishikigi deserving of a half rank over promotion, but not Chura no Umi?
Yeah,
And why
why
not?
split them?
Yeah. And why, if we're dropping Asanoyama all the way down to Maegashira 12, why not just slide him down one rank further to Maegashira 13 so that Hokuto Fuji could take the Maegashira 12 West rank and not be over demoted? It just seems like a random placement for him is all. They could have put him anywhere between Maegashira 9 West and Maegashira 13. So I can't really be mad that they just chose this spot and plugged him in here, but I'm just curious as to what their reasoning was.
I think you can be a little mad. It makes no sense.
True. Yeah, you either put it at the start to stop all of this stuff from happening, or you put it at the end and just let everything lie as it does.
Yeah, that's weird because it seems like when guys, as happens all the time, the further somebody is rising or dropping, the more likely it is to guess exactly where they land, usually. Yeah. And yeah, this one, it seems completely arbitrary. Mm-hmm. Like there's no reason for, splitting Nishikigi and Churanomimi. Like, why? If they're in the same spot, why?
Well, I mean, we could go even further with it because, like, Oshoma got ranked a half rank higher than he should have. So why not put Asanoyama there at Maegashira 9 East? Kinbozan got 2 ranks higher than he should have. So maybe we could have put him there at Maegashira 8 West to prevent that. And you could kind of keep going with that till about Maegashira 2 West.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it's something where they decided Asanoyama first and then just like filled in the pieces around him or something.
Yeah, it could be that in their mind, because like Maegashira 9, Maegashira 10, why that's where I chose to put Asanoyama, that had typically been where winless Komosubis had been ending up. Like the last 5 or 6, not with the exception of Wakataka Kage, who was the last one who got Maegashira 12, incidentally enough. That had been the previous trend. But we, like I discussed on the preview, the thought at the time when Wakataka Kage was demoted all the way down to Maegashira 12, well, we know he's injured. We don't need to do him any favors and keep his rank higher. We know he's not fighting in this next Basho. But now that Asanoyama is landing at Maegashira 12 East, maybe it is new regime, new rules, and they're wanting to drop these winless Komosubis a little bit farther than the previous regime wanted to.
Yeah, now it's a pattern.
It's a coincidence. If it happens a third time, then we'll find out if it's a pattern.
Fair enough.
Which hopefully that's a trend that we won't need to see for a long time. I certainly don't need to have another winless Komosubi anytime in the near future.
You don't want to put that evil on Daisho and Hirodomi.
Yeah, particularly Hirodomi. I'm really interested to see how he does. I mean, we know what Daisho is at this point, and he's very good.
True.
But I'm very curious to see what Hirodomi will have for us. But that's
more novel possibilities for sure. Yeah. All right, I'm with you there.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, Asanoyama at Maegashira 12 East. Don't fully know why he landed exactly there when, like I said, this guy had the biggest range of where he could have dropped on this Banzuke. Anywhere from Maegashira 9 West is where the highest I saw people, and all the way down to Maegashira 13 East is the lowest I saw people putting him. But now that we have him out of the way, let's just clear the way for a perfect prediction down to the end of the Banzuke. So at Maegashira 12 West, we will have Chura no Umi, who will be at his career high ranking. He's up 1 rank after an 8-7 record from Maegashira 13. At Maegashira 13, we do have Hokuto Fuji demoted by 1 rank after he had a 7-8 record from Maegashira 11. And on the west side, joining him, we have Takuto Fuji, who is up 3 ranks after a 9-6 record from Maegashira 16. So Takuto Fuji, he's putting a little bit of distance between himself and Juryo. He doesn't want to go back down there right away. So it's going to take at least probably 5 and 10 to knock Takuto Fuji back down there and restart those retirement talks for that guy.
Yeah.
But
And he'll be like, challenge accepted.
yep.
We'll see.
And then Maegashira 14, probably some people's most exciting part about this Banzuke. On the east side, we do have Waka Takakage back up in the top division after he was injured last year, had to take 8 months off. He fought his way back through Makushita and Juryo. He's back in the top division following a very strong 14-1 Basho in Juryo. So he's rising up 9 ranks from Juryo 6. And then joining him at Maegashira 14 West, we have Endo also coming up from Juryo. He had a 12-3 record from Juryo 3. So Endo dipped his toes back in the Juryo water for the first time in like a decade or something like that.
A million years, yeah.
Decided he didn't like that and wanted to get back in the top division. I'll be very curious to see how Endo follows this up, because leading up to his demotion to Juryo, he looked like a guy that deserved to be in Juryo.
Yeah, he looked like crap, and then all of a sudden he's on fire. But let's see if he can maintain that against the upper division.
Exactly. And then we're going to keep the Juryo promotee train rolling with Chiyo Shoma going up 5 ranks after a 12-3 record from Juryo 3. So Chiyo Shoma, of all guys, getting a 12-3 record down in Juryo. He's going to be making his way back up to the top division for the first time since September of last year.
Is it that recent? Feels like it's been so much longer than that.
Yeah, it's September of last year, and let's see how many. I want to see how many times he's been up and down.
Yeah, it's just kind of silly seeing the trend here of Takara Fuji coming. I mean, he came back last Basho into the top division, but Endo, Wakataka Kage, Chiyo Shoma, all these guys that are like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Let me get back up into that top division real quick.
Yeah,
let me just scooch on back into the top.
Yeah, I honestly thought Chiyo Shoma had gone back and forth more in his career than he had, but this is his 3rd overall stint in the top division. So he's only dropped down to Juryo twice. He's stayed down there for about a year each time, little over, little under. But when he comes back, he stays up for a while. So we'll see if he'll do the same thing here. He doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room. A 6 and 9 could drop him back down to Juryo.
For sure.
Then at Maegashira 15 West, for the 3rd consecutive Basho, we are going to have Roga, as he once again had a 7 and 8 record. And once again, they're like, you know what? We'll give you another try. 3rd time's the charm. We'll see what you can do. Let's see if we can do a little bit better this time. But yeah, Roga staying put after a 7 and 8 record. This was another thing I was fairly nervous about in my prediction. There were 3 things I was nervous about. Onosato over Abi, wrong. Asanoyama at Maegashira 9 West, wrong. And then Roga over the next 2 Rikishi, which luckily I got that right, and very happy I got that right. It's nice to go out on a little bit of a limb and be rewarded for it. The reason it was a little bit of a limb is because Kagayaki deserved to go ahead of Roga based on the math, but Kagayaki was ranked Juryo 5, which is outside of, I'm going to stop calling it the mythical Juryo Joy, because I think I fully believe in it now. Kagayaki
Joyo. No, we'll work on it. There's a pun in there.
Joyo might just be bad enough for it to work, though.
That's a bad pun in a language I don't even speak. So, like, don't laugh at that one. I take it back.
It's too late. But yeah, Kagayaki was outside of the Joyo, and so he did not get treated as well as some of the other Juryo promotees. Now, the Juryo Rikishi that were all in the Juryo Joy, there was very little controversy about where they would go. Like Endo, Chiyo Shoma, Juryo 3 had 12 and 3 records. Like, they were so far beyond the next Makuuchi Rikishi that deserved to be ranked. There's like no controversy about where they ended up. But Kagayaki deserved to be ahead of Roga by 1 rank. But after seeing how they treated Oshoma when he was promoted from Juryo up to Makuuchi last Basho, and he was outside the Juryo Joy, and how Ryuden went ahead of him, despite Oshoma deserving to go ahead of Ryuden by 2 ranks. Figured the same thing might happen here, and that's what happened with Roga staying at Maegashira 15 West. That does mean at Maegashira 16 on the east side, we have Kagayaki up 6 ranks after his 11-4 record from Juryo 5, and on the west side, Bushozan making his 4th trip up to the top division after a 9-6 record from Juryo 2. And then the final Rikishi on the Banzuke. This time there was really very little drama about who the last guy would be. It was very clearly always going to be Nishiki Fuji, dropping down 5 ranks after a 5-10 record from Maegashira 12. So my prediction, pretty good this time, just with the exception of the stupidness with putting Onosato ahead of Abi. Very good start up to Maegashira 5. And then at the end, we had a good run of 10 straight Rikishi to finish it out. It's just kind of a little muddy in the middle, and a couple of cases were just things we couldn't have predicted happening. So I do want to take a quick break here, and instead of going into like the Guess the Banzuke stuff, I got a question on our YouTube video for our Banzuke prediction, asking why the east side is on the left of the Banzuke and why the west is on the right. Because I mean, you look at a compass, east is on the right, west is on the left. Like, I feel like traditional thinking, east is on the right, west is on the left. Why is it different?
Well, if you
On the
consider
Banzuke?
north to be up.
Well, yeah, and like if
Did
any
you people just decided that one day? Can you imagine just like making that up and being like, which direction is like up? And they like point horizontally.
yeah,
Wow, who made that call?
somebody a long time ago. That was my joking answer in the YouTube comments. Is like, well, little known fact: all Banzukes are red looking south, so the east is on the
Yeah, they're
left side and the west is on the right side.
If you hold the paper and turn 180 degrees.
Yeah, but there may be a more legitimate reason. It's all kind of wrapped up in myth and shadow, like everything from like any of Sumo. Really, it's all feels
Yeah.
like
And I'm
myth
sure
and
they
shadow.
exaggerate deliberately how mythical and shadowy it is for
Yeah.
the exoticness of it, the mystique.
But this was something that apparently was discussed on Sumo forums. I think they pulled this from like a thread from 10 years ago. But I'm just gonna
Like
read.
you said, that's not a lot of time in sumo.
Yeah,
It's not like anything's changed since then.
yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna read directly from this. I didn't want to figure out what to leave and what to cut out, so I'm just gonna read this long passage about why it might possibly be east on the left and west on the right.
In classic, I imagine in classical sumo form, it's like possibly, maybe,
Yeah.
it's a gray area.
So the comment starts with, the other day I ran into a possible explanation of the whole
Yeah, okay, good.
why, and it's more like, why is east greater than west? Like, why is east better than the west?
Oh, sure.
And apparently it was the Japanese Wikipedia article on the Torikumi. So the east-west explanation from the Japanese Wikipedia article starts off at an even earlier time, no specific time frame, but I would assume the late 17th to early 18th century. Officially sanctioned professional sumo events started in Osaka shortly after 1700, and then in Edo/Tokyo a few decades later. At that time, there wasn't even a real permanent sumo business to speak of. Tournaments would simply take place via various independent groups of sumotori getting together in a town and their members competing against each other. The seat of the emperor was still in Kyoto at the time, so west was considered the more prestigious direction, but without any sense of competitive merit attached to it. It simply meant that the west side would be occupied by the home team of wherever the tournament occurred, while east side would be taken by the visitors.
Sure.
In addition, left was supposedly seen as more prestigious than right at the time due to influences from Chinese culture. So the West competition side came to be identified with the left-hand side of the doyo as seen from the front, which is like, I think the gyoji is like on the back. So the front would be like the side opposite of the gyoji.
Camera side.
Yes. Japanese Wikipedia article claims that this arrangement can be confirmed in contemporary drawings of Tanakaze and Onogawa. So then the Meiji Restoration period saw the emperor change his seat to Tokyo, This apparently resulted in East coming to be identified as the more prestigious direction, and they proceeded to switch the doyo sides to the now familiar arrangement, with East competing from the left-hand side. However, even then, this was largely a formal designation, not a matter of East being seen as more meritorious. That came about almost by accident, and once again, the blame goes to the first Nishi Noumi. He received his Yokozuna license in early 1890, but he was upset that he was scheduled to be ranked only as the less prestigious Haridashi Ozeki on the east side. Haridashi, I think, was something on Banzuke's where, like, you think of like a nice rectangular Banzuke, like the actual paper document. Haridashi would be like a tab sticking out from it to like add an extra rank or something like that. So like actually physically an extra tab. So this guy who had the Yokozuna license, not rank, the Yokozuna license at this time,
Yeah, because the
was
rank wasn't really a thing for a while still, right?
yes. So he was upset that he was a Haridashi Ozeki on the east side, because the Ozeki at this time was the highest rank.
Mhm.
And he was behind newly promoted non-Yokozuna Ozeki. He famously insisted that his Yokozuna status be made clear somehow. And so they did, by putting his shikona on the East Haridashi paper flap as originally intended, but denoting him as Yokozuna. So he was still on the flap, but this is where the Yokozuna rank kind of came into
First time it's
power.
like put in writing that this guy at this rank is somehow better than the rest of the
Yes.
Ozeki.
This was
Sure.
the first time that word made an official appearance on the Banzuke.
Cool.
And it ended up not only setting an unintended precedent for Yokozuna to be seen as an actual rank rather than just the ceremonial title it had always been, but because all this was happening on the east side of the Banzuke, it also resulted in East being seen as the more meritorious side over the next few years, what with it having a Yokozuna, while the west side did not have one.
Okay.
Eventually, this new prevailing view that East was better came to be accepted by the association as well. When the first Kokugikan was opened in 1909, the traditional East versus West scheduling of Makuuchi bouts was expanded into an official team competition, with each Basho's winning team getting to be ranked on the East side of the next Banzuke. So that's why, after the rankings eventually became more fluid a few decades later and Rikishi were no longer locked into one side, the Banzuke creation now starts with the East slot of each ranking position. So I think that covered why is East on the left side, because it was just seen as more meritorious. I think, as said, there was like Chinese culture influence in that. And then why is East better? Well, it just kind of accidentally happened that way, it seems like.
Yeah. I imagine there's a term for it, and it's going to come to me as soon as we hang up here. But like there's a term for like hangers on from the way things used to be. So like the save icon is still a floppy disk on most computer programs. Like one of those things. It feels like it just kind of evolved that way and wasn't like designed from the ground up to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be the story for a lot of sumo traditions. Is like that's just kind of how it was. And now that we've been doing it so long, we've decided that that is the proper way because it has
Yeah.
been done.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then there was another thing that arose from a comment on YouTube. Oh, I don't know that I mentioned. So that comment, the person who asked on YouTube, that was Pedro Vasconcelos. So thank you, Pedro, for the question there. And then I had mentioned in the preview, we were talking about like the Maegashira 2 to 4 rank on the preview, and how, well, there's no precedent for a 6 and 9 Rikishi keeping his rank, as much as that would have helped on this Banzuke.
Right.
And so I'd said that, and I said I didn't do any research. I just assumed that's true.
Yeah.
So somebody in the YouTube comments did a little bit more research than I did, which once again was none. So from Old Brutus,
Make sure not to get defensive about it though.
Old Brutus had mentioned that Tochi no Nada had kept his rank in 2011 following a 6 and 9 record. And so that made me like, okay, I gotta dig into that, because 2011, that's recent.
That's yeah.
That what happened there? And so I went and did my own research, where I checked basically all Maegashira ranks with a 6-9 record. Did any of them keep their same numerical rank and stay on the same side? I know there's a few cases where like a Maegashira 5 East has dropped to Maegashira 5 West. With a 6-9 record. Koto Shoho did that a couple years back. I'm talking about 6-9 record with exactly the same rank, which is what Tochi no Nada did. But I don't think we can take this as precedent because, Jake, what rocked the world of sumo in 2011?
Oh, match fixing.
Exactly. So his 6-9 record was in Natsu of 2011, and this was the Basho following the match fixing scandal. This was
The
what was
March one
labeled
was canceled, right?
this was labeled the technical examination, and wasn't like an official Basho or something like that.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
remember the specifics on that, but like the first one back, everybody was like, "All right, we're cool,"
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
then after that, they kind of went back to business as usual.
Yeah, so there were only 41 Rikishi on the Banzuke, not the typical 42 that we
Huh.
see. And there were a further 6 on that Banzuke that were on the Banzuke but did not compete because they were forced to retire due to the scandal.
But remained
So,
on the Bonsuke because the Bonsuke had already been made
yeah.
or something. Yeah,
And then the next Basho, they only had 40 Rikishi in the top division. I think it took one more Basho before they got back up to 42. So there's just a lot of unique weirdness around that time with the Banzuke that eliminates this from being any real form of precedent. And a lot of the Rikishi that were retired that happened to be on that Banzuke were kind of in that same range as Tochi no Nada. So I think that kind of threw
sure.
off where he should have ended up. So I'm not going to ever look back at that 6-9 and think, ooh, maybe 6-9 could stay in the same place. I think I'm always going to try to knock them down at least a half a rank.
Sure.
Before that, the only time in Sumo's modern era, which once again, modern is 1958 onward, where a Maegashira kept their same rank and side following a 6-9 record was in 1967. And since it was 1967, I didn't look into it any further. I'm like, okay, they were old. They didn't know what they were doing back then.
Yeah, they still had yet to figure out this sumo thing.
Yes. All
Okay.
right.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good reason not to consider the 2011 one precedent setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 1968 one or 67 one, that I don't know. That seems like it might be fun to look into and see if there's any reason to explain it. But yeah, similar that it's not one you're going to take into account every day.
Yeah. It required more research than I was willing to put into it at the time. which was already going rank by rank in Sumo DB and searching to see if a 6-9 record had ever kept the same rank.
Ah, that's right. We did talk about that too. Like that was the only way we would know how to query that is go every
Yeah.
single rank by rank by rank.
Yeah.
Woof. Fun.
All right. So this Basho, we'll get back to business as usual here. We brought up 5 Rikishi from Juryo, which means we had to send 5 Rikishi down to Juryo. Those being, once again, sadly, Takeru Fuji. Less sadly, Bitoryu, Toki Hayate, Tomokase, and Tsurugisho. So how
I
did
bet they're just as sad.
Well, I'm not as sad.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah. I'm sure they're as devastated as Takeru Fuji. Me personally, which is what I was talking about, not so much.
More importantly, Ryan is
more
not bothered,
importantly,
though.
yeah. More importantly to me, I care about how I feel.
Yep, you're right.
So how did I do on my prediction? I got 30 bullseyes out of a possible 42. So that's 71% Rikishi that I placed at the exact correct spot. My previous best is 79, so not too far off from one of my best predictions here. I got an additional 4 Rikishi at the correct rank, but on the wrong side. So I had 34 total Rikishi at the correct rank for 81%. My previous best being 90%. What was I on that Basho?
That's pretty good. Would you say this is in like the upper tier of your guesses?
Yeah, it's probably in the upper tier, not the absolute elite, but it's up there.
Sure.
And so I had 34 at the correct rank. First place in Guess the Banzuke had 36 at the correct rank this Basho. So I wasn't too far off from first place, and that reflects in my standings on this one. I finished 8th in Guess the Banzuke this time out of a possible 204 entrants. That's a 13-2 equivalent on Guess the Banzuke.
Nice.
So it feels nice getting back in the top 10. It had been there were 3 Bashos in a row where I wasn't in the top 10. And surprisingly recently, that's a long streak of me not being in the top 10 for Banzuke predictions. So it was nice to get back in there. But despite my good placement, I actually dropped to number 4 in Guess the Banzuke standings. I stayed behind Leonid, who was previously number 1, Leonid from the Tachiai blog. He is now at number 3, and there were 2 people that don't know where they came from, but they launched themselves ahead of the rest of the pack. One named Kale, who won this Basho. He's number 1 now, and somebody named Midori Yama is at number 2 now.
Cool.
So looking forward on Guess the Banzuke, my 8th place. So it's like a rolling average of like your last 6 scores is how they place you on Guess the Banzuke. And so my 8th place here replaced a 14th place finish from last year. So actually my average is a little bit better this time than it was previous because I replaced a 14th place with an 8th place. So small improvement there. But still, we're just going to have to. My goal right now is not to get back to number 1. My goal is to stay in the top 10 until I can get this 51st place and 91st place out of my rolling average. So those are just gonna hold me down for a while. So it's actually really nice with that as my goal. I felt so much less anxiety now that I knew I wasn't in first place. Waiting for the Banzuke to come out. It was so nice.
You don't have the heart of a champion, Ryan.
That's probably it. Yeah. Hey, but I was number 1 for 3 Basho, so I'll take that.
Hey, I got a trophy out of it.
Exactly.
No, I think it's gonna be a rough fall for you because the next 2 that drop off are really good finishes.
Place, 2 back-to-back 5th place finishes. So yeah,
we're at like almost a year before like you'll be rid of those 2 big stones hanging around your neck. But
yep. And that's if I don't replace them with something else that's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
it's tough to stay at the top, but you know what? I've been in the top 10 for maybe 2 years running now, if not a little bit more. So
nice.
Happy about that at the very least. All right, my worst guess on this Banzuke, if you're watching on YouTube, very easy to see. That was Asanoyama, who I had.
I can't quite make it out. Which one is that?
The one with the white text that we made it so it was easier to read.
It was so dark colored it needed to have the text change.
Yep. I was off by 5 ranks on Asanoyama. Biggest jumps up the Banzuke, we had Wakataka Kage rising 9 ranks through Juryo up into Makuuchi. The biggest rank the biggest jump from somebody that was in Makuuchi was just Ryuden rising up 6 ranks. That was the biggest Makuuchi jump. So not crazy movement on this Banzuke, which makes sense. There was a lot of 9 and 6, 7 and 8, 8 and 7, 6 and 9s. But there were a couple of pretty big drops. Takeru Fuji dropping down 13 spots from Maegashira 6 to Juryo 2, and Asanoyama dropping 12 spots from Komosubi to Maegashira 12. And then we have 4 Rikshi that are going to be at their career high rankings. Those are Onosato, Hiradeumi, Oshoma, Chura no Umi. Onosato, next Basho, I think, will, for the first time in his career, not be at a career high rank, because I don't think they're promoting Onosato next Basho.
That's a good point. He's always at his career best.
Yeah. No Rikshi are going to be making their Makuuchi debut. All Rikshi that are coming up from Juryo have already previously had long stints in the top division, with the exception of Bushozan, who's just trying to make it last 2 times in a row for the first time out of 4 tries. Didn't list them as we were going through, but I think you can guess who my snub of the Banzuke candidates were. We had Oshoma, we had Ichi Yamamoto, and I did put Asanoyama in there. So Oshoma for being put behind Keen Bozan, despite having the same like tiebreaker down to wins, which Oshoma should have beat Kim Bozan on wins. We had Ichi Yamamoto, who deserved the same rank as Midori Fuji, deserved to be ahead of Midori Fuji because he was on the more prestigious east side, and we know now why it's more prestigious. But Midori Fuji went ahead of him despite that. And Asanoyama, just kind of suffering from, seems to be the new trend of this new Banzuke committee of dropping the Komosubi a little bit further down. Jake, who do you think I have as the snub of the Banzuke?
I gotta call it well, I think you're going to disagree. I would say it's Asanoyama.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I know. I think I know you are going to pick Ichi Yamamoto
It's
because it makes
100%
no
Ichi
sense.
Yamamoto.
Yeah. No,
What
to
the
me,
hell?
I agree that one makes the least sense, but I'd say the person whose rank is most affected by just crap luck would be Asanoyama because yeah,
That's
he
fair.
could have been 5 slots higher than he was, and just completely arbitrarily out of a hat, he's not. So
But
that's why I picked that one. But I understand why you're picking Ichi Yamamoto.
he was snubbed because the Banzuke committee just decided to break rules against his favor.
He wasn't the most snubbed. He was the least explicably snubbed. Sounds like where you're coming from.
Which, in some minds, mine makes him the most snubbed because I can't.
And this is your episode, so you know what?
That's right.
Absolutely.
These episodes have always been about me, Jake, no matter what prior statements I might have made earlier in this episode.
I'm here to click the record and stop record button. I know my place.
And then luck of the Banzuke, just the other side of a couple of those coins. Keen Bozan going ahead of Oshoma, Midori Fuji going ahead of Ichi Yamamoto. And then I threw Roga in there just for having back-to-back 7 and 8 records and not getting any demotion out of either of them.
Yeah. And again, I'm gonna pick Roga because I think that's the silliest one, and you're gonna pick Midori Fuji.
Yeah. It's Midori Fuji.
Yeah.
How dare they?
I understand your reasoning and accept your opinion. I just think Roga is the other one that has to get a shout out for like just not doing the bare minimum and still being like not punished for it. He's probably like, what do I have? Am I okay? Like,
honestly, I just want to see him make it 4 in a row now. Like, I want another 7 and 8. Can we make it a full year at Magashira 15 West? Oh. Come on, let's make it happen.
Because if he gets an 8 and 7, they will move him up. He has to go up a little bit, right?
Yes.
Like they don't. You can stay put for a 7 and 8, but you don't stay put for an 8 and 7, right?
We've seen it happen. I know it happened to Yu Takayama back in like 2019, 2020, something like that. But that was because the size of the Sanyaku ranks fell by 3 in one basho. And so, like, despite him not getting a numerical promotion, his spot in the order of the overall Banzuke, he was ahead of 3 more people on the Banzuke, despite his numerical rank not changing.
Gotcha. So, yeah, he was like 20th instead of 23rd if you count guys from the top.
Yeah.
Even though his rank stayed the same. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
There is precedent for it, but it requires some fairly special, unique circumstances, it would seem.
Or like Sekiwake, Komusubi, Magashira 1 getting an 8 and 7 or something, you know, whatever. But
they don't count. We're talking Magashira here.
Yep, I'm with you now.
All right. And so we get to what you thought my worst guess was going to be on this, and you thought I
said Asanoyama.
You might have meandered towards it eventually, but your main thing was me keeping Roga at Magashira 15 West, specifically because it was keeping Kageyaki down, who had previously gotten a bit of Banzuke luck in the past, and we always associated Kageyaki with getting favorable treatment. So how could he possibly get unfavorable treatment against Roga? But hey, I was right. And then you also just kind of were generally unsure about the placements of the Juryo Rikshi, kind of felt like maybe they were being held too low. But I made us talk about this every time just to show that I know more than you. And so suck it, Jake.
And yet you keep asking me every time just to make sure, like,
just to keep you in your place, keep you in your place.
This goes back to whoever some comedian came up with this joke that like you should have a regular guy do every Olympic event along with the pro athletes just to like, and that's what I'm here for is like, if you if you put just some regular dude who goes jogging sometimes up against the Olympic sprinters look better, right? So
yeah, exactly. Oh god, that's such a good idea. Why haven't we done that yet?
It's some comedian has a nice long bit about it, and I don't know. I don't really care to look into it.
God, you wouldn't even have to pay me to embarrass myself like that.
Oh god, no, I'd do that for sure. That'd be so much fun. I could probably throw a shot put like 20 feet, maybe. If I could pick it up.
100-meter dash against Usain Bolt, and he'll finish it 3 times before I get to the halfway point.
Oh yeah, he's got to come back.
Yeah.
That's an idea. And I get like 4 throws to get as far as the shot put throwers or something like that.
Cumulative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Add it on. Yes, exactly. I get to go to where it landed, throw it again.
Yes.
Oh, my shoulder's already hurt just thinking of that.
All right, so that is going to wrap up our Banzuke review for the Nagoya Basho. The Nagoya Basho.
More shot put discussion coming up on our next episode of Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Shockingly, yes.
It is an Olympic year.
This is our soft transition into Olympic season where we're gonna just veer away from the sumo. We're gonna exclusively talk Paris Olympics 2024.
This episode of Grand Sumo Breakdown brought to you exclusively by NBC's stranglehold on the Olympics.
Yes.
Violent takeover merger capitalism just destroying everything to do with sport by NBC.
Yeah.
Hooray. Yeah, they're definitely not going to pay us now.
No. They weren't going to pay us before, so what's the difference?
Yeah. So suck it.
Nagoya Basho, it's going to be starting as late. I'm trying to end this episode, Jake.
No, I won't let you. I don't want to go back to work.
This Basho is going to start as late into the month as possible on July 14th. Before that comes out, you'll have a preview from Grand Sumo Breakdown to look out for. That episode's going to be dropping a little bit earlier than our typical Banzuke, not Banzuke, but Basho previews. Jake wants
probably
going to
be out on like
family or something like that.
Yeah, but it'll probably be out about a week from today, and then our midway as normal, the weekend of the 19th or 20th, 21st, somewhere in there. And then also due to travel, our recap will probably be out the Monday or Tuesday or so after the Basho.
Yeah,
we'll
Jake did a real piss poor job of scheduling his family time through this Basho.
Yep. To my credit, I didn't really have any choices on this one. These were like, here is when the family is going to do a thing. Are you going to be there or not?
And you didn't choose or not?
Well, but what about the podcast? Doesn't really fly for like 7 years in a row. I've been using it a lot to get out of family stuff, and it's coming back to bite me.
Fair.
All righty.
Well, until next time, throw your salt high, keep moving forward.